Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our second to last night of Unchained. Wow, the week has just flown by so quickly, but hey, I want to welcome you, whether this is the first time you're tuning in or whether it's the ninth time you're tuning in. Welcome to Unchained Friday night edition. Just a few reminders. Many of you are veterans at this point, you know how it goes, but I want to remind you, in case there's anyone watching for the first time, during tonight's interview, I'm really looking forward to it. I know it's going to be a great one and that there's going to be things that you're going to resonate with and pick up on and implement into your journey as well. But if you have any questions for us during tonight, please drop it in the chat. Just ask questions, and all questions are welcome, or text the number on your screen as well. Now, also, if you are new, we do a handout, a free giveaway every single night for our speaker's book. It's Darkness Shall Not Overcome by Richie Halverson. It's a signed copy, and it could have your name on it if you text Unchained to the number on your screen as well. So that same phone number, you can use it to ask questions. You can also use it to text Unchained and enter for the drawing. So once again, all questions are welcome. Feel free to, at any point, at any time, during the message, during the interview. And if you're interested in a copy of that book, go ahead and text Unchained to the number on your screen as well. And also want to remind you, if you haven't and you're new, please register so that we can keep you informed of when Richie's going to be in town in September. And we want, if you've enjoyed his message so far this week, I know you're going to enjoy it when he's here in person as well. So without further ado, I am excited to be interviewing our special guest tonight. And our special guest tonight is Shane. So can everybody welcome Shane? Give him a warm welcome. Say welcome, Shane, in the comments. So Shane, thank you so much, first and foremost, for being our person for tonight and sharing your story with us. We really appreciate it.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So Shane, can you tell us where you're from, first of all, and what was your home life like as a child growing up?
I was born and raised in Georgia.
All right.
Loganville is the city I was raised in, and I grew up in church.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we were Catholic for the most part. Catholic on one side, Baptist on another.
Mm-hmm.
Home life was pretty good up until my teenage years. Okay. Probably what struck me the most is my parents got divorced.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize how much it took a toll on me at the time, but I used negative coping skills, which you would say, to cope with that, to get through it.
Mm-hmm. So this is during your teenage years that this starts to happen?
Yeah.
All right.
Probably, I think my mom and dad got divorced. Started having troubles, put it that way, elementary school, and then they officially were divorced around middle school.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like you could see the signs or see the disagreements, the troubles?
Yes. Yeah. I grew up before. I had an older brother, 5 years older than me, so my dad worked a lot. With my mom, she was also a workaholic as well, working 2 jobs. I think the one thing that I probably needed the most when I was a child was structure. I needed rules, man. I was we were chaos. Me and my brother were literally raising ourselves. Mom and dad were doing enough to pay the bills to keep us going, but
yeah. So as it started in elementary school, did you expect the divorce to happen? Did it surprise you?
Elementary school, we were actually building a home. So we moved to a new location, to an apartment for about a year. So it was a different scenery. And when we officially got to when the house was built, moved into the home, things started to get worse. So the whole process of the home that we were working for, or my mom and dad were working for, when we finally achieved it, things really started to get hectic. So my dad was not a drinker, but just noticing him being drunk, not around as much, working more, I think, to keep up with everything that they had purchased. So I would say my eighth grade year, my brother was 5 years older than me. So seventh grade, mom and dad were split up. My grandparents were always close to us. So at the time of the house that we stayed in, they actually lived in the basement. Okay. We finished the basement, and that's where they lived. And my brother started going to University of Georgia at the time when I was in seventh grade. So me and my brother were super close.
Okay.
Right. So anything cool that he came upon, right, he's going to introduce it to his little brother.
Yeah. Right.
So it started with smoking marijuana.
Okay.
Probably the summer of my seventh grade year. Yeah.
So he started doing that when he was in university, and then he shares that habit with you.
I can't put all the blame on my brother, okay? But all the friends that I was associated with also had older brothers. We lived in a small town, so it all kind of came together at once between that. But once I knew my brother thought it was cool, right? Well, I got some friends that think that's cool too, so, let's all get together and, and do that. That went on for a couple years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So originally you started smoking marijuana because you wanted to fit in with your brother?
Fit in with my brother. He was the closest thing I had.
Yeah.
Didn't have any rules at the time. My dad still working a lot. He was still living local at the time, but just everything going through with the divorce or whatnot. I started smoking marijuana to kind of cope with what was going on.
Yeah. Did your parents ever notice what was going on with you and your brother?
With my dad, if my dad was still in the picture, I think he would have spotted it pretty well. My mom, though, was still, I love her to death. Don't get me wrong, but she was still in that party phase. I remember younger, smelling a strange smell, right? And realizing until I started smoking marijuana that that's what it was. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's how it went with that. When my brother moved off to the university, okay, so we were smoking and doing things like that. When he moved off to the university, I wasn't around him that much. That's kind of when I started to explore other drugs.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So at what age did you start experimenting with other drugs?
I would probably say it was off and on. I mean, on the regular, probably the worst was probably my 9th and 10th grade year. So I was probably 14 or 15 years old.
Okay. Yeah. So originally you said it was because it was, your brother was introducing this new thing and you wanted to try it with him, either to fit in or because you were close, wanted to share that experience. So what were the reasons when you were around 14? What was your reasons for going beyond the just smoking marijuana?
I mean, around that phase, right? Like movies like Half Baked or Dazed and Confused, Johnny Depp, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. That was the cool stuff to us. I mean, we thought that was what life was, right? That was cool. Like everybody else is doing that, right? So just like nowadays, but that's what we tend to focus towards. And I don't know how we did it, but we were still doing that and playing sports and fitting it all in. Now there were some other times where, I mean, the town that we lived in was probably the size of Chesney.
Okay.
So everybody kind of knew everybody.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We didn't really have. There were groups, right? I don't want to say labels, right?
Yeah.
But the labels, but it didn't matter. After school, everybody got along. Everybody got along with each other. Didn't matter what group you were in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how long did that continue during that time, since around 14? How long did you continue using various drugs and such?
So it started with alcohol and marijuana. Um, Around that was off and on. Then it was Xanax.
Okay.
Right, opiates wasn't really in the picture that much.
Hmm.
Occasional cocaine use.
Mm-hmm.
My 10th grade year is when methamphetamines was introduced.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, how did that? You said you were still involved in sports and school. So, how did that impact your day-to-day life with those habits during that time?
Well, I was pretty active. My middle school, man, we were on point, right? Things didn't really start getting real bad until my ninth grade year. I don't even think I wrestled or played football
Okay.
my ninth grade year. I think I dropped out of football
Okay.
in the middle of the season
Yeah.
and just started smoking,
Mm-hmm.
partying. Meth wasn't really that much at that time. I think until the summer of my ninth grade year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Were there any like coaches or teachers who were maybe noticing what was going on with you?
We had just changed from middle school to high school.
Mm-hmm.
So the coaches didn't really have time to develop. Like we
Mm-hmm.
didn't have a program like the schools do now where the middle school works out with the high school
Yeah.
type
Right,
stuff. They're
right.
like that transitional program. We didn't really have that. So
Mhm.
like there was middle school coaches and then there was high school.
Mhm.
So like you had a separate team. You had a ninth grade team and then you had JV and then you had varsity.
Mhm.
So they didn't really kind of know what. I mean, they did. They've heard about me and they watched film or whatnot, and from what the middle school coach had told them about me. But I mean, I was a really good athlete at that time.
Mhm.
But a few probably reached out. I probably just didn't listen at
Yeah.
the time. I think things got really worse for me at the time. Is my granddad, the one I was really close with.
Yeah, the
you
ones
know?
that lived in the basement at that
That's
first
it.
house. Yeah.
Yes. So when my brother moved off, that was a big blow for me, right?
Yeah.
That was like, I mean, like we pretty much raised each other. We were best friends.
Mhm.
I mean, there wasn't
Mhm.
anything I wouldn't tell my brother,
Yeah.
right? And when he went off to college, at that time, my grandfather started getting sick with cancer again.
Mm.
So, and at the time that went on, me and my brother started selling marijuana.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So was it for like financial reasons, or what were the reasons for why you and your brother started selling?
He was going to school. He was paying off some student loans or whatnot. But
Yeah.
for me, I mean, it was. I mean, I volunteered it, right?
Mhm.
Because I mean, I could sell a little bit and have free smoke whenever I
Mhm.
needed it,
Mhm.
right? I
Yeah.
was the talk of the town,
Yeah.
not as far as peer goes, but just with people. You need party supplies.
Mhm.
We were one of the sources to go to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when was it that you realized that drugs and alcohol were a problem in your life?
That's a good question. It's been off and on. I met a girl in high school, and her family started bringing me to their church.
Mm.
Okay.
Mhm.
At the time, I was battling. I've done pretty much all the drugs, almost probably not heroin,
Mhm.
unless it was laced in some cocaine or something like that.
Mhm.
But I asked Jesus Christ to come into my life, my 11th grade year. All right, we were still partying. She was in that crowd.
Mm.
We was still dipping into some meth before I got saved. Okay,
Mhm.
it got pretty bad then.
Mhm.
My brother, he wasn't really into that type of stuff, so he was pretty upset that I was using those type of drugs. But he
Yeah.
was all for it. So, anyways, I met met this girl. Her parents were bringing me to church. And man, I started listening, right?
Mhm.
And that voice, that conscience, the Holy Spirit's telling me, man, I need to change my life. I need to change my life.
Mhm.
So when I got saved, I got baptized. Man, someone was telling me like I need to change, but I needed influence,
Yeah.
right? And talking to some of my friends and even her, they're like, okay. I mean, they thought I was weird, like.
Yeah.
No, we're not going to change,
Yeah.
we all kind of got out of meth around the same time, but the pills, like ecstasy, mushrooms, those type of drugs were still a cool thing, when meth kind of faded out with us. And ain't nobody really wanted to change. Me and my girlfriend had broke up at that time, right? And me and a good friend of mine happened to started getting into meth again. And when we started doing that, he had a downfall with his parents, and he ended up staying with me. And so then we just started to sell meth.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
it's so stupid, man. It's so stupid.
So you start off,
so stupid.
and you because of this relationship, you go to church, give your life to Christ. Then after that, you try to live better, but no one's really caring. And then after that, you break up with that girl, and then
my grandfather died.
your
as well.
grandfather dies, and then you're living with this other guy, and then you go back.
Yeah,
You
we
relapse into okay.
back into the to the hardcore stuff. Now there was a time, okay, when this time that that I got saved, my junior year, it was probably after my sophomore year. Okay, man, I was back in football again, back in wrestling. I mean, getting scholarship, offer letters. My 11th grade year, my senior year, I had battling some injuries. But it was towards the end of my senior year when I started getting back into the meth after the breakup. Grandfather was dead, all that.
So this time when you went back and had that relapse, what was the reason? Before you said it was either to, it was the fun thing to do, it was what other people were doing, what your brother was doing. Why did you go back this time?
I quit caring. Just didn't care anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, I needed my dad. So I think at the time all that was going on, I went to my doctor, and I just broke down. I was like, I need my dad, man.
Yeah.
I need a man in my life. I need guidance, right?
Yeah.
And that's when I decided. Let me take that back. My doctor, he's like, okay, well, I don't know how to help you, but go live with your dad then. Right. And at the time, that's what I did.
Yeah.
And this was my senior year. Right. Everybody, they're going to college. I just remembered after we graduated, the summer ended my senior year, and I was like, man, what am I doing? Like it's August. Usually school would start back, and I didn't have a plan, man. It was either me join the National Guard, and I took some interviews with that, or just start over in South Carolina, and that's what I did. But where the story gets even darker is when I moved up here with my dad. I changed my life around. Yeah. I did, and I was sober for off the hardcore drugs. Okay, but I was sober for 13 years before I really got back into a relapse.
Wow.
Hard relapse.
Yeah.
Man, I never addressed my triggers, man. I ran from it.
Yeah.
I hid from it.
Yeah. Created that new life from Georgia, created a new life South Carolina.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now in your early 30s, what led up to that third relapse?
So one of my triggers, okay, was breakup in relationship trauma, right? So when I started having a little bit of that in my marriage, the wants started to come back. And just this, that, just different. It just started to kind of escalate.
Yeah.
We had a rough marriage at the time, and like you said, man, I let my guard down. I let God out of my life. Those 13 years, 6 of them, they were with the Lord, right? And when I got married, man, I got out of church. I started seeking a career. I was like, man, I gotta get a job, right? I gotta get a trade. I gotta go do something. I've got to make money. So, and God let me, he let me build this empire all by myself. And eventually I learned a hard lesson, right? That anything I do to put him in my life. So, yeah.
So these mounting pressures, these marital problems, these issues, and it's a trigger. You go back into it, and it sounds like it was worse than when you were in high school.
Oh man, it came with a vengeance.
Yeah.
Oh, it came a whole lot harder.
Yeah.
There's a saying, right? One demon leaves, seven more come, or whatnot.
Yeah.
Might not be quoting that correctly, but that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. So how did that affect that, that part of your life now? Before you were able, it sounds like, to get by sometimes on and off. How did it impact this time in your 30s?
Man, I lost everything slowly. I started off because I was doing meth. Man, my mind was everywhere, man. It wasn't so bad. I mean, it was coke, it was pills, it was methamphetamines. I was running around with high blood pressure, not keeping it under control, highly agitated. Eventually, when I started introducing some of that and trying to work, people started catching on. Yeah, it made everything worse.
Yeah.
So I ended up in jail a few times.
Okay. And what was did your brother know about this? What was his reaction during this time?
So my brother, when I moved to South Carolina, he stayed in Georgia for a little while, but then he ended up relocating to Florida.
Okay.
So we've been away probably since after my senior year when I moved up here. So this go around where he was scared. Everybody was trying to reach out to him to kind of talk to me. He doesn't use those type of drugs or anything like that. And man, I didn't want to listen to nobody. I quit caring. Right, I was trapped at the time to where man, I grew up with a stepdad. Okay, I grew up with a divorced family, and I didn't want that for my kids.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it felt like that was the best thing that we needed to do, that we needed to separate. And I felt like either way I went, that I was trapped.
Yeah.
So I got confused and started to use again until it completely corrupted and ruined my life.
Yeah. So obviously a lot to unpack there, but what was it like? Where was that next step? When did that come?
To sobriety?
Yeah.
Oh man, it was a long ride.
Yeah.
So I got arrested and started using in 2017 again. Okay, and I end up getting arrested in 2019. 2018, 2019. It wasn't drug related. It was an assault almost. Criminal domestic violence. Yeah, is what put me into jail. Like I was a loose cannon, man. I mean, it doesn't matter. Like if somebody looked at me wrong, I was ready to fight.
Yeah.
And it sent me to jail. At that time, I had lost. I knew I was in trouble because of my trade, so I went to school to be a physical therapist assistant. So I knew at the time of renewing my license, they usually ask, "Have you been in contact with the law?" So I got out. Was on home detention for a little while. I was able to work for a little while, but I haven't went through that renewal period. But I knew that when that renewal period was going to be up, that I wouldn't be able to work anymore. So I cleaned up for a little while and started running and getting right back into the streets.
Yeah. So when was it that you finally made that decision that, hey, I'm going to commit to this and start that long journey, that long road to recovery?
That was off and on, court mandated. I was sent to criminal domestic violence classes, okay, which helped. I did listen, and I was attending the Forrester Center at the time, and it helped. Still in and out, just like I was in high school, kind of going to church, doing that, but it's just still 1 foot in the world, 1 foot
Yeah.
in church. And for, I think the last time I've been sober since October of 2021.
Wow.
That was 3 or 4 trips to jail later.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I was on my last limb, rock bottom. I knew I needed God to take control.
Yeah.
I needed God. And then again, this wasn't, I needed my dad.
Mm.
I needed the Lord.
Yeah.
I needed the Lord. I needed to submit, man.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to quit trying to do things my way. I needed to just get on my hands and knees and cry out to him and surrender.
Yeah.
And I did.
Yeah. So that felt need is what made the difference that time
Yeah.
compared to other times.
Yeah.
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 Do you feel like your faith in God added that level of either structure or that you were seeking and needing ever since, I mean, you were a child?
Yeah, man. I feel like a void has been filled,
Yeah.
you know? And really the whole time I needed my physical father and I needed my spiritual father.
Yeah.
You know, I needed both.
Yes.
And I have them both now.
Yeah.
And it was just calming down and slowing down and just being in the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, anything that I do now, man, I don't leave him out,
Hmm.
because I was reminded, like, you know, when I cut him out of my life, and I was doing it and I was building it for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong, man. I was praying here and there, I was meditating here and there, but I was in control. God wasn't in control.
Mm-hmm.
I was in control. I was making the decisions.
Yeah.
And I didn't put any part of him in it. But now everything that I do, man, I make sure. It's amazing. Like in the mornings when you pray, okay,
Mm-hmm.
those days that you really do pray, the formula is just right. Like your day goes better, man.
Mm.
I mean, it never fails. The days that I don't do it,
Mm-hmm.
man, my day falls apart, man. Somewhere down the road, it falls apart. Not into complete chaos,
Mm-hmm.
but it just falls apart.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So it sounds like, that there's that foundation you start your day with, and that has changed. I imagine that affected those triggers, the emotions that you were previously having, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. Wow. Well, thank you so much, Shane, for sharing the story over at least 20, 25 years of your life, right? Is that right? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
about
So,
right.
so hey, I'm really looking forward to asking you some questions and unpacking in more detail your story. And I just want to remind you, if you're watching right now, please ask questions of Shane. There's so much he has. There's so much he's experienced. I feel like we could take a solid 2 hours unpacking your all of that went on with you, but
Yes.
but yeah. So I look forward to the Q&A period. Drop some questions. You can text questions to the number on your screen. At this time, we're going to hear another message from our speaker, Richie Halverson, on breaking those chains and the next step towards making that resolution.
Welcome to Unchained, Hope and Healing from Addiction. In every message we have heard and we learned we've got to get honest. Before we can ever deal with the problem, we've got to admit we have a problem. Then we've got to believe that there's someone bigger than us that can restore us to sanity, that is powerful enough to help us in our situation. And then we've got to be willing to apply that to our lives. We've got to have this thing called faith, where we step out and give this spiritual principle a try. Next, we learn the importance of courage. Fear shouldn't paralyze us. Now, courage is not the absence of fear, but it's rather walking through the fear. We feel the fear, but we don't let the fear paralyze us. Then we learn the importance of humility and being teachable and learning, not thinking we know everything or have it all together. And then we learned the freedom of forgiveness and reconciliation, that real amends is not saying you're sorry. Real amends is discontinuing the behavior that required the sorry. in the beginning. It's restoring the relationship to the way it was before the pain, before the hurt. And then we learn perseverance. Man, if we're going to break free, if we're going to live an unchained life, we've got to keep going. We cannot give up. You've got to persevere, persistent, practice, and stay going forward. And today we're going to talk a little bit about something called love. Love, serving others. So talking about these spiritual principles, that's easy. But practicing them in our lives and in day-to-day situations, not so much. It's not always easy to love people, especially in the world that we live in. 1 John 4:8 says, anyone who does not love does not know God, because God is love. You see, only through love can we ever come to know God. You can be very religious and not know God. You can be very successful and not know God. But the real God and real love, those things go hand in hand. If you had to use just one word to describe God, power, it would be love. It's not always the picture painted by Christians, right? It's unfortunate that often Christians are some of the most unloving people at times. And so love is not always the picture painted by Christians, but it is the picture painted by the Christ that is in Scripture. 1 Corinthians 13:13 says, 3 things will last forever: faith, hope, all right, that's right there in our first 2 steps, and love. But the greatest of these is love. 1 Corinthians 14:1 says, pursue love. See, you got to go after your recovery. You've got to go after the unchained life. It's not going to come to you. You've got to pursue love. We got to go after it. We can't live an unchained life without love. 750 years before Christ, a prophet named Hosea wrote a book that I believe is one of the greatest books on the subject of love. Hosea 2:19, it says, I will betroth you. I will marry you to me forever. This is God speaking. I will betroth you to me in righteousness, in justice, and in steadfast love and in mercy. Hosea 1:2, it says, when the Lord began speaking through Hosea, the Lord said to him, go and marry an unfaithful wife and have unfaithful children, because the people in this country have been completely unfaithful to the Lord. The New Century Version says unfaithful, but what the actual word it uses there is whore. Eugene Peterson in The Message put it like this, Hosea 1:2. The first time God spoke to Hosea, he said, find a whore and marry her. Her name is Gomer. They have 3 kids together, 2 boys and 1 girl. When the first child, Jezreel, is born, Hosea 1:3, she conceived and bore him a son. But with the next 2 kids, she bore him is missing. And so there's a good chance with children 2 and 3, Maury Povich would say, Hosea, you are not the father. The daughter's name, Loruma, means no mercy. God is upset because his people are his people in name only. They show no mercy. Have you ever met any self-proclaimed Christians maybe like that, or people who might have been very religious, but they had no mercy, they had no love, they had no grace? That's what God is saying about Israel. His son Lo-Ami means not my people. For you are not my people, and I am not your God. In Matthew 7:21 through 23, Jesus says, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven. On that day, many will say to me, Lord, Lord, did I not prophesy in your name, cast out demons in your name, and do mighty works in your name? Yeah, but you didn't love anybody, and so I never knew you. We see knowing God and love inextricably linked. 1 John 4:7, beloved, let us love one another, for love is from God, and whoever loves has been born of God and knows God. Unless we love, we can call ourselves followers of God, we can call ourselves Christians, we can call ourselves people of love, but we're not. Our name is Lo-Ami, not my people. So things go from bad to worse for Hosea when one morning he wakes up and he finds that Gomer is gone. Suddenly Hosea is a single dad and he's raising 3 kids, 2 of which are not his. You see, real love isn't always easy to do. But if you want to live an unchained life, you're going to have to learn how to love. You're going to have to learn how to love the hard to love. Hosea 3:1, the Lord said to me, go again and love a woman who is loved by another man and is an adulteress, even as the Lord loves the children of Israel, though they turn to other gods. So during this time, Israel embraced pagan philosophies that taught that love could be purchased. But the reality is real love can't be purchased. They bought into this idea that love is found in the pursuit of self-gratification, that love could be found in the accumulation of stuff, or that love, that real satisfaction was selfish and self-seeking. And so God asks Hosea to help him show his people what real love looks like. You know, real love does not close itself off from people in need. Real love does not shut people and a community out of our lives just because they look different, just because they act different, worship different, just because they have problems and you don't think you have problems. Real love doesn't close itself off and ignore people in pain. Hosea goes looking for Gomer. You see, real love goes looking. We got to go looking for the people in pain. We got to go looking for the people that are hurting. In recovery, there was a saying I remember hearing very early on, and that was that the newcomer is the most important person at any meeting because you cannot keep what you have without giving it away. And very early on, you know, I'd go up to my sponsor and be like, oh, this is happening at home, and oh, this is a problem, and I can't believe this is going on, and you know, this person's upset at me, and my sponsor told me, Richie, the best way to get out of yourself is to do something nice for someone else. And he introduced me to this thing called service work. I was given the job of making the coffee. And it took me several tries to get the coffee right, but man, me just coming to the meetings and having a job and doing something for someone else instead of doing something for myself, that was love. Coming early and setting up chairs, you know, it seemed simple, it seemed small, but man, that's what I needed to do to get me out of myself. That's what real love does. It goes looking for someone to help. It goes looking for something to do. We live in a very selfish culture. We need people to go look for people that are hurting like they're hurting. And the reality is, the greatest way to live an unchained life is help other people live an unchained life. We can't keep what we have without giving it away. So just think of some of the places that Hosea had to go look for his wife. He's got to go to the red light district. He's got to go to the bars and the brothels in order to find his wife. He's got to go up to the pimps and the pushers and the bartenders, and he's got to say, have you seen my wife? Oh, sorry, man. I didn't know you guys were still a thing. No, she's not here anymore. And so Hosea has to go out and keep searching. When Hosea finally finds Gomer, it's not a pretty sight. She's being auctioned off. I hope you know, man, that's what addiction does. That's what this thing, sin, can do. It uses you up and then it sells you out. It will never give you the satisfaction that you're looking for. It will never take care of you. Hosea 3:2, so I brought her with 15 shekels of silver and a homer of lethech of barley. Now that wasn't that much money. In fact, it was about the amount to hire just a normal housekeeper. So Gomer's been passed around so many times, she's not worth much to anyone anymore. She can only go for a little bit, and yet she's worth something to Hosea. I want you to know right now, you are worth something to God. You are worth so much. John 3:16 says, for God so loved the world. It doesn't just say he loved the world, it says he so loved the world. If God spoke to you on through a text message, it would say, God so loved you that he gave his life, his life for you. He gave his only son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life. And so here we have Hosea. He's willing to pay whatever the price is to get his wife back. God was willing to pay whatever price in order to get you back. Hosea is paying for what was already his. It's his wife. In 1 Corinthians 10:26, it says that the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. You see, on the cross, God paid for what was already his. After this, Hosea renews his vows to Gomer, and he says in Hosea 3:3, "Then I told her, from now on you're living with me. No more sleeping around. You're living with me, and I'm living with you. I'm committed to you, and you're committed to me." Friends, that's the kind of love that changes everything. Hosea 3:5, "After this, the people of Israel will return to the Lord, their God, and follow him and the king from David's family. They will tremble in awe of the Lord and of his goodness." And so here we have Hosea. He's standing there with his wife, who's cheated on him a few times, he's had to buy back from the auction block of slavery and sin. And that's when God gives Hosea a vision of Jesus Christ. According to that text in Hosea, what causes the people to come back to God? It said it was his goodness, his love. It's interesting, the name Hosea means salvation. Psalms 95:1 says, "God is the rock of your salvation." You know what the name Gomer means? It means completion. Ephesians 1:23, "And the church is his body, and it is made full and complete by Christ." Guys, only in the love of God will you feel absolutely complete. Because God is the only one who knows absolutely everything about you and still chose to give his life for you. Matthew 9:11, the Pharisees asked his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with such scum?" Have you ever felt like scum? Jesus came for the scum of the earth. What they called worthless was worth everything to Jesus. And Jesus was always hanging out with the people that the church people had thought were worthless. But friends, the worthless are worth everything to God. The Pharisees were very religious, but they did not know how to love. And so they did not know God. People can go to church and they can act like they know God, but unless you love, you don't know him. And interestingly, Jesus starts quoting Hosea 6:6. He says, "Go and learn what this means. I desire mercy. I desire love, not sacrifice. For I came not to call the righteous, but sinners." The people who thought they knew God most actually knew him least. Because it's only through love that we can really know God. It's only through serving other people that we can really be set free. It's only in our focus on someone else that we can get out of ourselves. Romans 3:23 and 24, "Everyone has sinned. We all fall short of God's glorious standard. Yet God in his grace freely makes us right in his sight. He did this through Christ Jesus when he freed us from the penalty of our sins." God loves you so much that he will not let you go. Man, I've tried to run away from God. I've tried to leave his love, but he keeps coming after me. That's the kind of God that we have. That's the kind of love that he has for you. Luke 19:10 says, "The Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost." You see, Jesus is our Hosea. He says, "I'm going to keep on looking for you. I'm going to keep on knocking on the doors for you. I'm going to keep asking people where you are. And when I find you, it doesn't matter if it's in the bar or the brothel or the boardroom or the bedroom in the crack house or the White House. When I find you on the selling block of addiction, broken, beaten, covered in chains, I will give everything I have just to get you back." 1 John 4:11, "Beloved, if God so loved us, we also ought to love one another." You see, when we realize what our Hosea did for us, we can't help but go after other Gomers that are hurting. Man, we work with people, we work with Gomers, people that are sold out, that are broken, that are hurting, that have been used up. We work with Gomers, we live with Gomers. We all are Gomers. Are you willing to go after people that are hurting? Are you willing to help someone? Are you willing to do something for someone else? Are you willing to remind them that they have someone who loves them? Before we can ever love someone else, we have to first see and realize how much we are loved. Before we can ever love others, we must see how God loves us. 1 John 4:19 says, "We love because he loved us first." Hosea 2:13, "You went after other lovers and forgot about me." You know, the problem with that is the only love that can really satisfy us is God. Hosea 2:7 says she will chase after her lovers, but she'll never catch them. She will look for them, but she'll never find them. And then she will say, I will go back to my husband as at first, for then I was better off than I am now. I wonder, have you been chasing something this last week? Maybe you've been chasing something this whole last year. Maybe you have been chasing after a love your whole life. Only one thing works. Only one thing really satisfies, and that's the love that you don't have to chase after because it's chasing after you. When no one else in their right mind wanted to have anything to do with me, my God, my Hosea found me and paid the price to make me his again. He unchained me from the shackles of addiction. It didn't happen overnight, and it wasn't just the opioids. See, the drug addiction is only a symptom. The drug that you use doesn't really matter. It's why am I going to these things? And that's what's cool about this series is all these principles that we're learning will help us deal with other chains that are holding us back in life. If it wasn't drugs, maybe it was spending money I didn't have to impress people I didn't like. All of these principles that we're learning, we can apply to the different chains that hold us back. Join us for our dramatic conclusion in our next session, part 10 of Unchained. You're not going to want to miss it.
Wow. Hey, that, something that Shane just told me just now is, hey, that message, that story of his life right there. So, hey, that's how you know that God is involved when those puzzle pieces come together like that. Well, so I want to remind you, if you have any questions, now is the time to text them. If you haven't entered for the drawing tonight, now is the time to do so, as that'll be coming up very shortly. So let's get started with the questions that you've been asking. See several there. So this is from Donovan. Area triggers is the same for every. Are triggers the same for every addict? What are some common triggers for those battling addiction?
Common triggers could be relationships, trauma from relationships. It could be, such as my instance, divorce, right? Problems, relationships, probably a few.
Yeah. So several. It sounds like, life things.
It's pain, man.
Yeah, pain.
Anything that's related to pain, you have to be so careful not to add drugs or alcohol with pain, because it will form an addiction. It's so much better to when you have pain to go into something of meditation or Jesus Christ, prayer, meditation. Universally speaking. So
yeah, cool, awesome. Great question. Sammy and Mom, do you have a sponsor? And was a 12-step program a part of your recovery? And then what do you do to maintain your recovery today?
I do View Recovery. It is a little bit different. It is a 12-step program. But I also, earlier in my recovery, I went to a resource called Favor Upstate. Okay? And they are also a form of NA, but not so much into the 12 steps. So I don't have one of those stories where I actually worked the 12 steps. To believe it or not, God helped me when I finally got to the point where I started to read the 12 steps. I've already did it. And now I'm still working on that 11th and 12th step every single day, just staying active in meetings, going to church, whether it's online, whether it's resources like Favor. Earlier in my recovery, I went to the Forrester Center, and they had meetings as well. Just staying active 2 to 3 days a week. You have to. With me, I try not to get comfortable. Okay, like this was something that I need.
Yeah.
This outing, this interview,
Yeah.
right? And I was like, I'm getting comfortable, and Kyle had called me about this, and I was like, I need to get uncomfortable, and I got
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I needed it.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
just whatever it is, church meetings, just never. The only thing I can say is never. If you're battling addiction and you have that voice telling you to quit, okay, never stop quitting or trying to quit. Stay at it.
Yeah.
I mean, just stay at it.
Yeah.
Not the addict part, but just stay at trying to
Yeah.
quit.
Yes.
Okay.
Stay. It's like,
'Cause-
well. Yeah.
Whether years, a couple years, if you keep trying, it'll eventually take over, and God will kind of come into your life and get you to that point where you need to be.
Yeah, I think of what Richie just said. You know, you gotta pursue the recovery. So it sounds like you're still pursuing it every day, and that helps you maintain that sobriety.
Always.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have to.
Wonderful, wonderful. This is from Kyle. Speaking of Kyle, alongside prayer, what coping mechanisms do you use when negative feelings and emotions arise? In addition to prayer, what coping mechanisms do you use when negative feelings and emotions arise?
Instead of prayer,
In addition to prayer.
in addition to prayer, I try to catch it early on. Okay, so I don't let my I wouldn't say there's a word to it, but as soon as I feel a negative emotion or something come, I try not to chase it down the rabbit hole, so to speak. So whether it's walking away, depending if it's in front of a group of people, if I'm by myself, right, I go into that prayer. Okay. Sometimes if it's involved in another person and I don't know what to do, I'll just politely say, I'll be back in a moment, and get me by myself to where I can really process it rather than lashing out or saying something that I regret.
Yeah.
So for me, a coping mechanism is getting me by myself and just talking it out with me. I mean,
Yeah. Really removing yourself from that situation. Yeah. Another question. Marijuana used to be considered a gateway drug. Has the legalization of weed made it better or worse for those battling addiction, in your opinion?
It was a gateway drug for me. I mean, it was because once you introduce that feeling of being high, you start to think well, maybe there's something better. Maybe there's a better drug that can make me even feel better than this. I mean, some people are just okay with smoking. I'm not, man. I mean, with me, like, if you give me, like, I need two of everything. Like, I don't want one piece of gum, man. I want two pieces.
Yeah.
Like, there's no off switch for me. Like, I mean, if there was a bag involved, I mean, no, we're not smoking. We're smoking the whole thing now.
Yeah.
So, and same thing with drinking. Like, you don't know how somebody's going to respond. You don't know how they're going to respond to it and how it's going to overtake their life. So,
Yeah. Well, from Sammy and Mom, you were sober for 13 years and then relapsed. What did you learn about yourself and your addiction through that experience?
that's a very good question. I'm kind of glad someone asked that. Don't run away from your problems. Okay, I ran away from mine.
Yeah.
And it remained dormant. So I was a dormant volcano, right? Just ready to explode.
Yeah.
If there is an issue, tackle it head on.
Yeah.
I mean, just tackle it. It doesn't matter if it's addiction, emotion, relationship problems. Address it right away. Don't suppress it. Just please address it. Whatever you got to do, whether it's church, a therapist, any of that, just continue on, because those triggers came back for me, and I never did anything about it. I mean, I was going through the motions, staying away from it, playing hide. But when it found me and it was face to face, I fell and I gave into it. So build your toolkit and be ready and address the situation as soon as it comes is the best that I can give for that. So,
Yeah. Well, it sounds like, I think that dormant volcano analogy is very apt, because it seemed like it got worse because they were dormant for so long for you, because that's when it went even harder. Yeah. Yeah. Do you feel that your perception of your profession has changed from when you were in active addiction and now?
Read it one more time.
Do you feel that your perception of your profession has changed from when you were in active addiction and now?
I'm assuming that's my work profession.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
I think so.
This is something that I had recently talked to my therapist. There is something where you put somebody back into their element. Sometimes it just works its way out. So when I lost my job, okay, that's when I got worse. But when I got my job back and into the career that I'm in, before, that was my element.
Yeah.
That's where I needed to be.
Yeah.
So it is a positive thing for me in my addiction.
Yeah.
Okay, just being in my element. Because believe it or not, if I lost my job and I had no way to gain it back, I can't tell you what kind of temptation would come my way. That is a trigger that I have not yet experienced.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
Yeah.
I'm ready for it.
Yeah.
Okay, saying that if I wasn't able to get another job in my field, right? So my profession and staying where I'm at, and being in active recovery with South Carolina professionals is what I'm going through right now to stay active in my recovery. To answer a question from somebody earlier, I have to remain active with them, to be active to maintain my license.
Yeah.
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 So being in my profession and being held accountable is very good to maintain my sobriety.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like that's kind of like the theme that, even from a kid, that structure.
Yes.
That structure is very important in, in your progression. All right. Couple more. What kind of structure were you craving growing up? Speaking of structure, what do parents need to provide that we're often too busy to focus on?
Rules. I mean, just staying in routine, okay? Especially with a child, right? You take a child out of routine, it's chaos. We all do good with routine.
Yeah.
I mean, think about your daily routine. I mean, we're still big kids, right? But if something goes wrong, your way to work, somebody cuts you off, whatever, if something disrupts that routine, okay, it throws us off. And sometimes our whole day is ruined.
Yeah.
I try not to let that happen because,
Right.
Now, if it happens like 6 or 7 or 8 times in one day, man, I'm exhausted, right? That's a
Yeah.
lot of mental strength
Yes.
to
Stay flexible.
yeah, to keep straight minded. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So having those rules and maintaining those rules.
yeah, routine, sticking with it. So don't tell a child. I mean, with some things, like my kids now, they'll ask me something, and they're wanting an answer right now. I'm like, I got to think about it.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to say no and then change my mind.
Yeah.
And one thing that's helped me is a saying is, you change your mind, you lose your mind. Not with all cases, but if you say something, stick with it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Or give something back. But I just needed rules. I needed love in my household. I needed a father figure. I don't think my mom as I got older, she was working a lot, man. It was just kind of tough love. I just didn't have any type of structure. It was just school for me and practice, but anything else. One thing I try to implement with my kids now is, they're only in middle school, but I didn't have that person when I was in middle school telling me, what do you want to be when you get older?
Yeah.
And kind of sit down with me and explore different careers.
Yeah.
So one thing that I try to do with my kids now, man, every once in a while I'll explore different careers with them. Man, my son, he's in ninth grade, man. He's got 4 years left.
Yeah. Wow.
And I don't want it to be like me where my senior year, everybody's going to college,
Yep.
and I don't want them to be their last minute decision. There's so many opportunities out there, and if I know what their likes are and what they're into, I'm their parent, man. I got to be the one to guide them to the right career to make that choice. So I'm starting it with them very early.
Yeah.
So
Well, good on you for providing that structure and giving your children something that you needed. So, wonderful question. Last question for tonight. So, what words of hope can you share with others who are in pain and in active addiction or early recovery and aren't able to see the light at the end of the tunnel?
I'll answer from my perspective. If they're in pain and you think it's somebody else's fault, it's probably not. If you really search deep down inside, it's probably your own. And one thing that kind of helped me is just getting a sheet of paper and writing down, journaling, okay, or just writing down, who am I? Mm-hmm. Be honest with yourself. Journal. Get all those emotions out. Don't keep it in. Be careful who you tell and who you talk to, but just start journaling. All right, just go. It's just you and a pen. Right. If you start journaling, if you talk to God, you just get it out. If you're in pain, don't hold it in, and be careful. Who you open up to, so it's not used against you. Yeah. Seek counsel. There are hotlines out there, right? Everywhere. And you'd be surprised that your employer, if you're employed and you have health insurance, there are so many resources. If you actually look on Blue Cross's Blue Shield website or whatever it is, just do something. It might seem silly. Just do something. Yeah. Get yourself out of isolation. Go work out, start some healthy habits, do something with your life. Don't sit there and sulk. Climb yourself out of the hole. Take one step at a time.
Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Shane, for your testimony, for your words of encouragement, for offering that hope. And we are glad that you decided to leave your comfort zone tonight. So we're blessed by you. So
appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So tonight's winner for the book is someone very special to us, Summer Spears. Summer Spears, congratulations. We'll be sure to get a book to you. You deserve it for all that you have done. If you don't know Summer Spears, she actually has been running some registration and whatnot and has been tracking with us every night. So we're super appreciative of her and just her effort and time. So want to remind you, it's not too late to win a book yourself. We still got one more night. Now, tomorrow, we're going to do what we did last Saturday. We're going to have an interview in the morning. Starting, the church service will start at 10:45, but the sermon portion will start closer to 11:30. I'll have a few thoughts, a brief message, and then we'll go into another interview that morning and learn more from someone, part of our own church family, their experience with addiction and whatnot, hearing their testimony. And then, of course, that evening, we will have our final night, our final session of Unchained, Hope and Healing from Addiction at 7 p.m. So whether it's tomorrow morning or tomorrow evening, I'll see you, same time, same place. And hey, as Shane said, it's not too late as long as you're trying. If you're watching this right now, it's not too late to take that next step, to climb up out of that hole and take that step towards breaking those chains. Thank you for spending your time with us tonight, and we hope to see you tomorrow for another session of Unchained.